It was just past midnight when the office finally emptied out. I watched as my coworkers packed up their belongings, said their goodbyes, and disappeared into the elevator one by one. The usual hustle and bustle of our marketing firm gradually faded into a gentle hum of air conditioning and the occasional ping from a server somewhere in the back room. I hadn't planned on staying this late, but the Henderson proposal was due tomorrow, and I wasn't about to let 6 months of work fall apart because of a few unfinished slides. I settled back into my chair, the soft glow of my monitor illuminating my workspace in an otherwise dimly lit office. The city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a backdrop that made me feel like I was floating in some liminal space between work and the rest of the world. There's something intimate about an empty office at night, as if the space itself relaxes when no one's watching. That's when I noticed I wasn't alone after all. 3 desks down, partially hidden behind a large monitor, sat Ethan Chin, the new creative director who joined our team just 2 months ago. He was focused intensely on his screen, one hand absently running through his dark hair as he squinted at whatever he was working on. The blue light reflected off his glasses, hiding his eyes, but I could see the concentration in the set of his jaw. Ethan had been something of an enigma since he arrived. Brilliant, charming, with a quick wit that could disarm even our most difficult clients. Everyone liked him immediately, myself included, perhaps a bit more than I cared to admit. We'd worked together on several projects, and there was something about the way he could finish my sentences in meetings, the way he'd catch my eye across the conference table when our CEO said something particularly absurd. Small moments of connection that I found myself thinking about more often than I should. Ryan? I thought everyone had left. Ethan's voice broke through the silence, startling me from my thoughts. He'd spotted me and was now leaning back in his chair, a tired smile crossing his face. Henderson proposal, I explained, holding up my coffee mug and a mock toast. It's not going to finish itself. Ah, the infamous Henderson deck, he nodded, understanding immediately. Want some company? I'm stuck here with the visual assets anyway. And that's how it started. What was supposed to be a couple of hours of parallel work turned into something else entirely. We decided to push our desks together to make collaboration easier. It made sense at the time. Why shout across the room when we could just talk normally? The office felt less empty, less lonely with someone else there, especially when that someone was Ethan. As the night progressed, our conversation drifted from work to more personal topics. We talked about our college days, our first jobs, the disaster clients we'd encountered over the years. Ethan told me about growing up in San Francisco with parents who expected him to become a doctor, and how he disappointed them by pursuing design instead. I shared stories about my small hometown in Michigan, where being different in any way made you an immediate target. So when did you know? Ethan asked during a lull in our work, his voice softer than before. We'd been working for hours by this point, and it was well past 2 in the morning. The Henderson proposal was nearly done, but neither of us had made a move to leave. Know what? I asked, though something in his tone made me suspect what he was really asking. That you were gay, he said simply, his eyes meeting mine without hesitation. There was no judgment there, just genuine curiosity. I paused, surprised not by the question itself, but by how comfortable I felt being asked. High school, I think. Though I didn't come out until college. Small town, you know how it is. I shrugged, trying to seem casual even as my heart rate picked up. What about you? Always knew? Ethan smiled, leaning back in his chair. Just took me a while to be okay with it. My parents, they're traditional. They've come around now, mostly, but it wasn't easy. The conversation flowed naturally from there, revealing layers to Ethan I hadn't seen before. The confident, always put-together creative director had his own insecurities, his own struggles. We talked about dating disasters, about the challenges of meeting people when work consumed so much of our lives, about the unspoken rules of being out in a professional environment. I'm not sure when exactly our chairs moved closer together. It happened gradually, both of us leaning in to look at something on a screen, then not quite moving back to our original positions. Our shoulders would brush occasionally as we reached for something, and each brief contact sent a small current through me that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Can I ask you something else? Ethan said, his voice dropping even lower. The office was so quiet now that he was almost whispering, even though we were alone. Sure, I replied, trying to ignore how close we'd gotten. I could smell his cologne, something subtle and warm that I'd noticed before in passing but was now unmistakable. Have you ever dated someone from work? His eyes held mine, and I suddenly found it difficult to breathe normally. No, I admitted. Always seemed like asking for trouble. You. Once. It was a disaster, he laughed softly. But I think it depends on the people involved, don't you? There was a moment then, one of those moments that seemed to stretch out endlessly, where the air between two people becomes charged with possibility. I was acutely aware of every inch of space between us, which had somehow shrunk to almost nothing. Our knees were touching under the desk, and neither of us moved away. Ryan, Ethan said my name like he was testing how it felt on his tongue. I've wanted to talk to you like this since my first day here. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. Ethan had never seemed shy about anything. Professional boundaries, he shrugged, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. And I wasn't sure if you were interested. I am, I said, the words coming out before I could overthink them. Interested, I mean. The confession hung in the air between us, and I watched as Ethan's expression shifted from uncertainty to something warmer. He reached out slowly, his hand coming to rest on mine where it lay on the desk. His touch was warm, steady, and it sent a jolt through me that had nothing to do with the 3 cups of coffee I'd consumed. I should probably tell you, he said, his voice taking on a playful tone, that I didn't actually need to stay this late to finish those assets. They were done hours ago. I laughed, surprised and flattered. So you stayed because? Because you were staying, he admitted. And I wanted more time with you outside of meetings and group lunches. The honesty in his admission made my chest tight. How long had we both been circling each other, looking for an opening? How many late nights and coffee breaks had been missed opportunities? Our conversation became more intimate, our voices dropping lower as we shared more personal stories. Ethan told me about his ex who had never wanted to be seen with him in public, about the years he spent trying to be someone he wasn't to please his family. I opened up about my own struggles with relationships, about the guy who had broken my heart in college, and how hard it had been to trust someone again after that. Time seemed to lose all meaning as we talked. The Henderson proposal sat forgotten on my screen as we turned our chairs to face each other completely. Our knees were touching now, and occasionally Ethan would emphasize a point by touching my arm or shoulder, each contact lingering a little longer than necessary. You know what's funny? I said, glancing at the time on my computer and realizing with shock that it was nearly 3 in the morning. I've told you more in the past few hours than people I've known for years. There's something about this, Ethan gestured to the empty office around us, that makes it easier to be honest, I think. Like we're in our own little bubble outside of normal time. He was right. The normal rules didn't seem to apply here in this liminal space we created. The professional boundaries that had kept us at a careful distance during daylight hours had dissolved in the quiet darkness of the empty office. I've been wanting to ask you something for weeks, Ethan said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. He leaned forward slightly, and I found myself mirroring him until our faces were just inches apart. Would it be completely inappropriate if I? The sudden flood of bright overhead lights made us both jump back, blinking in the harsh fluorescence that had replaced our intimate dim lighting. The sound of a vacuum cleaner roared to life somewhere near the entrance, and a cheerful voice called out, "Hello? Anybody still here? Just us cleaners." Reality crashed back in with jarring abruptness. I squinted toward the entrance where 3 people in blue uniforms were making their way into the office, pushing carts of cleaning supplies. The night cleaning crew. I'd completely forgotten they came in at 3. Ethan and I looked at each other, momentarily frozen in place, before scrambling to put some professional distance between our chairs. But it was too late. The lead cleaner, a woman in her 50s with a kind face and graying hair pulled back in a bun, had already spotted us and was heading our way, a knowing smile spreading across her face. Well, she said, her eyes twinkling with amusement as she took in our flustered expressions and the obvious proximity of our workstations. You two are certainly burning the midnight oil. Or should I say the 3 a.m. oil? Henderson proposal, I explained for the second time that night, my voice sounding unnaturally high even to my own ears. Big client presentation tomorrow. Mim, she nodded, not looking convinced in the slightest. Must be some proposal to keep you both here this late. I'm Maria, by the way. Been cleaning this floor for 7 years, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone looking quite so invested in their work at this hour. Ethan recovered more quickly than I did, extending his hand with his usual charm. Ethan Chin. And this is Ryan Mitchell. We really did lose track of time working on this project. Maria shook his hand, then mine, her smile never faltering. Don't mind us. We'll work around you. That you might want to save whatever you're working on. We'll need to vacuum under those desks at some point. As she moved away to direct the other cleaners, I caught Ethan's eye, and we both broke into nervous laughter. The tension that had been building between us all night hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted into something lighter, almost giddy. Well, that was. I started. Perfect timing? Ethan suggested with a rueful smile. I was going to say mortifying, but sure, let's go with perfect timing. We began gathering our things, the spell of our private bubble well and truly broken. As we packed up, Maria and her team worked efficiently around us, emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces. I couldn't help but notice the occasional glances they threw our way, accompanied by whispered comments and small smiles. They definitely think we were. Ethan trailed off, nodding subtly toward the cleaning crew. Yeah, I agreed, feeling a blush creep up my neck. Can't really blame them. We were kind of 2 inches apart, he supplied helpfully, his eyes crinkling with amusement. Exactly. We finished packing in companionable silence, the air between us still charged, but now with an added layer of shared humor. As we walked toward the elevator, Maria called out after us. You two have a good night now, she said, winking not so subtly. Don't worry, your secret's safe with us. We see all sorts of things on the night shift. There's no secret, I protested weakly, but Maria just laughed and waved us off. In the elevator, Ethan and I stood closer than strictly necessary, our shoulders touching lightly. The digital display counted down the floor slowly, each number bringing us closer to the real world waiting outside. So, Ethan said finally, breaking the silence. That wasn't exactly how I imagined this night ending. How did you imagine it ending? I asked, surprising myself with my boldness. He turned to face me, his expression serious despite the small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I was about to ask if I could kiss you when the lights came on. My heart stuttered in my chest. And what would I have said? I don't know, he admitted. What would you have said? The elevator reached the ground floor and dinged softly, the doors sliding open to reveal the empty lobby. Neither of us moved. Yes, I said simply. I would have said yes. Ethan's smile widened, and he reached out to press the button for the parking garage. The doors closed again, giving us a few more moments of privacy. The night's not over yet, he said softly, stepping closer until we were back in that intimate space we created upstairs. Unless you want it to be. I shook my head, unable to form words as Ethan's hand came up to cup my cheek. His touch was gentle, questioning, giving me every opportunity to pull away. Instead, I leaned into it, my eyes closing as his lips finally met mine. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as months of unspoken attraction poured out between us. His hand moved from my cheek to the back of my neck, pulling me closer as my arms wrapped around his waist. Time seemed to stop again, the world narrowing to just the two of us in this small space. When we finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, the elevator had stopped at the parking garage. Ethan rested his forehead against mine, a small laugh escaping him. I've been wanting to do that since the first time I saw you demolish Johnson's terrible marketing ideas in that meeting, he confessed. That was my second day, I pointed out, smiling at the memory of the particularly contentious meeting where I'd first noticed Ethan watching me with interest. I know, he nodded. I'm not usually this patient. We reluctantly separated as the elevator doors opened, but Ethan reached for my hand as we walked toward our cars, his fingers intertwining with mine. So what happens now? I asked, suddenly aware of all the complications this new development could create. We do still have to work together tomorrow. Today, actually, I corrected, glancing at my watch. Now, Ethan said thoughtfully, I take you to breakfast at this 24-hour diner I know. We talk more, maybe kiss more if you're amenable. And then we go home, get a few hours of sleep, and go to that Henderson presentation where we're going to absolutely crush it. And after that? I pressed, needing to know we were on the same page. After that, he squeezed my hand gently, we figure it out together. Slowly. Properly. If that's what you want. The sincerity in his eyes made my chest tight with emotion. I'd like that, I said softly. As we reached my car, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. You know the cleaning crew is going to be watching us like hawks now, right? Maria's probably already told the day shift about finding us. Ethan grinned, pulling me closer by our joined hands. Let them watch. Maybe we'll give them something worth talking about. And as he kissed me again, more deeply this time, I couldn't bring myself to care about office gossip or professional boundaries or anything beyond this moment. Sometimes the most unexpected connections happen in the most ordinary places, even in a dimly lit office at 3 a.m, with the cleaning crew as unwitting witnesses to the beginning of something new. Later that morning, as we walked into the office together, slightly rumpled but buzzing with a combination of caffeine and new relationship energy, we passed Maria finishing up her shift. She took one look at our barely concealed smiles and knowing glances and gave us a thumbs up. Told you, she said to her coworker loudly enough for us to hear. Office romance. Gets him every time. Ethan and I exchanged glances, trying and failing to suppress our laughter. Whatever happened next, the complications of dating a coworker, the inevitable office gossip, the challenges of balancing our professional and personal relationships, it would be worth it. Because sometimes the right person has been there all along, just waiting for the right moment, the right conversation, the right interruption by the cleaning crew at 3 in the morning to bring everything into focus. And as we settled in for the Henderson presentation, sitting just a little closer than we would have yesterday, I couldn't help but think that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings happen when you least expect them, even when they're interrupted by overhead lights and vacuum cleaners. Total_char_count, 17,985.